What's going on, guys? In today's world, in the current political climate, and with today's events, I decided it would probably be a good time to talk a little bit about communication prepping. And this is for all you guys out there that don't know a whole lot about radio communication, that want to have something ready if you need it, but don't have a lot of money to put into it. And so I'm going to talk about some good ways to really make sure that you have a secure communication plan and really hammer out what radios are going to be best for you. And so we're going to be talking about the ham radios, FRS and GMRS, and that way everybody gets an idea of what they might need when the time comes. And this is all for a budget, right? So we're looking at not spending a lot of money here. So license disclaimer: when we get into the GMRS and the ham radio frequencies, we're talking about frequencies that do require a license. So yes, in emergency use, you do not require a license. However, the test questions, especially on the ham radio exam, they really teach you how to operate your radio, and they teach you valuable information that will really help you down the road. On top of that, a license will help you practice legally, and that's really important because you fight like you train. And if you don't practice with your radios, you're not going to know how to use them when the time comes, and that's going to be the worst time to try to figure it out. So, and this is a scenario given that we're kind of looking at. In today's political climate, we're looking at an infrastructure collapse. This could mean cell service is possibly disabled in some way, maybe physically or by choice of an authority. We're not going to talk about repeaters here because I don't really think repeaters apply to emergency situations that I'm talking about. Sure, repeaters on towers might have backup power, or they might be maintained by an individual, but you can't really guarantee that. You can't guarantee that a nefarious person might try to take out those communications. So we're going to be talking about solely point-to-point communications. Who's this for? Like I said before, these are for people that don't have a lot of knowledge about radio communication and want to have a communication plan in the event that the grid goes offline. And while your more expensive radios will obviously get you some better range, you can get a lot of bang for your buck these days. And that's what we're really going to be hammering out here. So these are the tools of the trade. You have your radio, an antenna, power supply, and a plan. All of those are very important when it comes to communication. We'll be looking at 4 types of radios here, which are FRS, which are not ham and do not require a license but often have restricted range due to limited power. GMRS, which require a license, it's $70 and offer range over FRS, but there's no test. We're also going to be talking about 2 meter and 70 centimeter handheld ham radios, which if you're a fan of the channel, you already know what those are, and also base stations that are 2 meter and 70 centimeter ham radios. And both of those do require a license, and they do require a fee to test. So your FRS radios, your family radio service, these are radios you see at Walmart. They have a fixed 22 channel list to operate in a 400 to 500 megahertz section of the band. They don't normally communicate with ham radios unless the ham radio can be modified illegally to communicate with an FRS radio. They typically have a max power output of 2 watts, and most times they have a fixed antenna that can't be changed because it would be illegal if you did change it. But we're kind of starting to borderline on some blurry stuff these days, and sometimes some manufacturers are coming out with them. The pros and cons of FRS radios. Well, the pros are fixed channels mean it's easy to find other individuals, as there's only, well, there should be 22 to choose from. Now, there's no programming needed, so you can't screw up the programming by hitting the wrong button, because you can always just go back to the same channel you were on. It's simple, 22 channels. These radios are very accessible, so more individuals are more likely to have them laying around. So you're going to be more likely to able to communicate with these in terms of people just having them. The cons, obviously, are that they're limited by 2 watts, which isn't a ton of power. So you have a limited range there. There's also, because of the limited channels and the surplus of availability, means that there's a good chance that those channels are going to be being used up, or a person is going to be listening on your channel. And with 22 channels to choose from, there's not anywhere really you can go. You also can't change the antennas out, which is a big con. Because an external antenna or like a mounted antenna somewhere is very important to increasing your range. So we're going to talk about a couple or three FRS radios here. And these are ones that I've looked online and researched and determined to probably be some best fits for a budget radio. So very affordable. The KB9BRJ-Pole on Amazon, very affordable at $36. These radios support USB charging. And that's really why I picked these out, because they're only $36 for a twin pack, and you can charge them off a USB power bank. They also can take 3 AA batteries, so you can have mass storage of AA batteries somewhere, and if they run dead, you can go into your AA battery storage and change them out. To use the recharging feature, you must use rechargeable AA batteries. But in terms of power, these radios are very versatile, and it's easy to switch out batteries or use a power bank if you have to. The Midland T75 VP3. These radios are water resistant, which is a huge plus, and they have active weather alert for NOAA, assuming that's still running. They can also be charged over USB, and the cool thing about these is they actually come with 2 belt clips, the rechargeable batteries, a desktop charger, and a micro USB charging cable. Now the DEWALK DX FRS 800. These are some cool radios. Obviously, they're the higher end radios on this list for FRS, but they are waterproof, dustproof, IP67 rated, and shock resistant up to a 2-meter drop. They have Vox for hands-free use, and they advertise a full 2 watts on appropriate frequencies. They have vibration alerts on transmission and 18-hour runtime, and they come with a 2,000 milliamp hour rechargeable battery. These radios are built to last. They're built to withstand the harsh environments. If you're looking at something that's not going to break easy, these are going to be it, but you're going to pay that premium price for them as well. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about GMRS here. And this might be my personal opinion, and I'm sure people are going to disagree here. But combined with the unavailability of GMRS radios and the lack of manufacturing from different companies at their decent power, besides usually like a Midland radio, they don't have a huge boost over FRS radios. There are some exceptions, and there are some made, and we'll talk about 1 or 2, but GMRS typically does allow 50 watts of power. Now, to buy a 50 watt power GMRS radio, you're going to spend a lot of money, which is has no place here in the poor man's guide. They can communicate with FRS radios and usually come with these channels built in. So they do share the same channels, some of the same channels as FRS radios. So the ones that we talked about prior, GMRS, should be able to communicate with those. There are some radios that are GMRS only. You want to make sure you check that out. They do require a $70 fee for a license to operate, but there's no test, and it's for 10 years. So you pay $70 for 10 years. Most do not come with a removable antenna, as it's illegal to operate a radio with a removable antenna on FRS frequencies. And that comes back to the manufacturing. Just the lack of availability of these things and just trying to find them online. One that you can find GMRS radios all over Amazon, right? The handheld ones. But when you look at the power output, they're the same as FRS. So why would you pay a premium for GMRS radios besides more channels if they're going to offer you the same power as a FRS radio? Now, there are a few exceptions. It's called base station radios. And with these that are in our range, sub $200, you're going to be looking at maybe 5 to 20 watts output power. So one I've picked out here is the Midland MXT115. And by the way, all of these are going to be in the description. If you guys want to buy one of these, all the links for these are going to be down below. But this radio in particular boasts 500 watt output power, which is quite a leap over our FRS 2 watt output power. It also has the NOAA weather scan and comes with all the basic mounting hardware and a 12-volt plug for your car. We're going to be talking about power supply for these radios a little later. But the cool thing about this is you can take the antenna and you can mount it outside your vehicle. You can mount it outside on your patio, wherever you need it. It doesn't have to stay with you, which is one of the biggest perks over FRS radios. So that's pretty much all we're going to talk about in GMRS, because for options that are affordable, there's not a whole lot. So the 2 meter and 70 centimeter handheld ham radio. So the pros here, the handheld version of these radios can operate up to 10 watts of power. They can, which give them quite the distance over FRS. The antennas are removable, so you can attach upgrades or mount one higher to further increase range. And you can greatly increase the selection of frequencies to use to minimize interference with other users. The drawbacks here are these radios do require a license to operate. Yes, in emergency situations, again, you can operate them if it's life or death. But if you want to practice with it and know your equipment, you need the license. For those less experienced or do not have a license to practice operation, they can get quite confusing to program and operate. There's a lot of frequencies, there's a lot of buttons, there's a lot of modes. And if you don't know what you're doing, well, you're not going to be able to communicate. The handheld is still capped in power over ham radio base station radios that can operate over 50 watts plus. And we're going to talk about those in a bit too. So I'm going to go over the basic handheld ham radio radios that everybody knows about. Maybe not so much the Radio Ditty, but we're looking at the Baofeng UV5R, which is the tried and tested $20 to $35 ham radio. The Radio Ditty GS5B, which is like a premium Baofeng, and the BTECH BF F8RT. So the Baofeng UV5R. These radios cost in the $20 to $30 range. They are Chinese and cheaply made, but offer a lot of power for the price. They really get out there. You're already at $20 to $30. You're already beating FRS radios into the dirt. They can be difficult to program, so this is something that you want to practice beforehand and have ready. They have 5 watts of power. Some of them have been manufactured as 8 watts and recharge with a cradle. Combined with an upgraded antenna, they can easily span upwards of 5 miles. So you can detach the antenna and screw in a mounted antenna if you'd like. They can be programmed with FRS frequencies to communicate with FRS radios. This is illegal, but it's possible. They have many accessories in cases that can be bought online to upgrade them as well, such as speaker mics and spare batteries. There's all types of little upgrades you can get for your little Baofeng. There's all kinds of cases made, pouches, whatever you need. But the Baofeng UV5R, it's a radio. If you drop it, as long as you have another, it doesn't hurt too much. It's 20 to 30 bucks. The Radio Ditty GS5B, I call this kind of like an upgraded Baofeng. It is more premium, and it does come with a better antenna than the Baofeng comes, and it still puts out the 5 watts. But it does feature Bluetooth programming, which don't know if you'd want to use that during an emergency, but you can program it over with your phone. They also advertise a quick sweep team function that can detect the frequency of nearby radios. It's probably just a faster scanner than the Baofeng scanner. And these do also, as well as the Baofeng, feature a flashlight. The Baofeng doesn't feature an SOS strobe, but this one does. And this one actually features dual push-to-talk, so you can transmit on different frequencies without changing channels. So if you have one group programmed here and another group programmed that you want to talk to over here, you don't have to actually change channels to talk between them. You just use different transmit buttons. One of the cool things about this, and the big reason it's on this list again, is it can be charged by a USB power bank, which could be invaluable because we all have power banks laying around everywhere, right? And if you can charge it over USB, that's awesome. The last one we're going to talk about is the BTECH BF F8RT. It is a direct upgrade to the UV5R. It comes with upgraded antenna similar to the GS5B, but the transmission power, I've made some typos here, but the transmission power is at 8 watts, making it the range longer than any other handheld radio on this list. It has a 40% better increase over the UV5R on the battery to compensate for the higher power. And the Amazon package that this comes with also comes with a programming cable, a car charger, a desktop charger, earpiece, and 2 antennas. So that's a pretty good deal. You know, as long as you have your ham license and you're willing to do that, 8 watts power for 70 bucks isn't bad. Now we're going to talk about the 2 meter, 70 centimeter base stations. And we're still talking about ham radio, right? So you still need a license. The only advantage that these have over the handheld radios is that they have a higher power output. They can usually get up and around 50 watts. So the cons here is you got to have a 12-volt power supply. And you might not always be able to find that. You have to purchase an external antenna to go with these radios. They don't typically come with one, and they can be a pain to move from one place to another as the antenna and the power supply are separate. And that's something that you want to think about in this type of scenario. How long is it going to take you to pack up and move? And so once we get into these, we're going to talk about external antennas, a little bit about power supplies, because all of that stuff comes together to create a good, solid communication plan. The budget base station radio, there's not a lot of sub $150 radios, so I'll be talking about one, the BTECH Mini UV25X2. There may be more, but they're almost all the same quality, just different variations. Somebody's going to disagree with me. Make sure you let me know in the comments. But you can already see how this is such a big upgrade over the GMRS. We are paying $150 for 15 watts of output power on GMRS, when over in Ham Radio base station, we can get a cheap Baofeng for $130 that put out 25 watts. And of course, I'm going to get hate in the comments. That's okay. A budget radio on par, so the BTECH Mini UV25X2 is pretty much, it's a budget radio on par with the Baofeng radio. They're made by the same, I don't know about the same company, the same distributor. It's pretty much the same technology. It comes with a card DC adapter for your 12-volt outlet, and they can be very complicated to program, just as much as Baofengs, so it's something that you want to have ready to go beforehand. With 25 watts of output power combined with an external antenna, these things can reach quite far. If you have a mounted antenna like the JPole we're going to be talking about, these things can get some distance, and you're talking like city to city, town to town distance. So out of all the options on this list, this is what's going to yield you the most range. Now let's talk about some antennas. The handheld radios mentioned here come with a SMA adapter. That means you can interchange the same antennas used with the base station so long as you get the right adapter. Base station radios typically use a connector called SO239, so you can get an SO239 to SMA adapter or vice versa if you want to interchange antennas. The base station handheld antennas that we're going to be talking about, which means you can use it with either, is the Nagoya UT72 Magmount antenna that comes in at $40, and the KB9BRJ-Pole antenna that comes in at $35. The handheld only antennas we're going to be talking about are the ABREE tactical antenna for $22, the Nagoya NA771 for $26, and the SignalStick for $25. The Nagoya UT72 Magmount antenna. They can be easily be placed on any metal surface. Is often used on the roof of a car. You can really just slap them down on anything that the magnet will stick to. They're easy to move around to different locations because they don't mount or attach to anything really. And they're an easy way to place antennas where you want indoors when using a handheld radio, like like if you want to stay stationary somewhere. Say I'm sitting here and I want to use my radio with quite a bit of range, I can throw up the antenna way up in the window back here or something like that and greatly increase my range while I'm still stationary here. So that's a really handy thing. So this right here is the only product that's not on Amazon. Is actually sold off of eBay, the KB9BRJ-Pole antenna. $35 for a copper J-pole is not a bad deal. These antennas are usually mounted outside on maybe a PVC pipe like in the picture, or anything to get them up as high as possible. These are for your base station radios. So it needs some type of mounting system, but it's the most efficient on the list. And when you're talking about range, these compared to one of those base station radios is what's going to yield you the most distance. They're hard to move from place to place and can't easily be used in a moving vehicle. Paired with the BTECH base station, of course, and some height, you can get a lot of range, like I said before. And we're moving now on to the handheld antennas, and we're going to start with the ABREE tactical antenna. This antenna provides a nice bump in range over the default antenna that comes with the radio. It's got a more tactical feel to it. It folds up, kind of feels like a tape measure. I've tested one of these before, and I like them pretty well. They're nice little tactical antennas, and they can really help out with range. The Nagoya NA771 is kind of like the premium whip for handheld radios. I feel like when people talk about it, it's like the Apple of handheld radio antennas. You know, it's flexible and it provides a nice upgrade over the default radio antenna. When I've tested these, they're pretty much on par with the ABREE, or any standard whip really, but they do look nice. The super elastic SignalStick. So the cool thing about this is it's made by hams. It's really made by hams. It's not, you know, coming out of China. It's made by the same people that do ham study. It's basic, really, but the cool thing about it is it can be bent to any shape. So you can twist it into a loop or whatever, and you can leave it usually however long you like, and whenever it unwinds, it's always going to come back out straight. The link for these are going to be in the description too. They also sell glow-in-the-dark versions now too, so you don't stab your eye out. So yeah, they're pretty good antennas. Pretty flexible, easy to shove down into a small case if you need to. So let's talk a little bit about power supply. For the FRS radios mentioned here, you can power them with the USB power banks, and you use with your phone. So that's the big plus here. If you have a source of 5 volts, you can charge these radios. You can also stock up on AA batteries and use them if you like. The base station radios require a 12-volt power source. This can be either a 12-volt battery or an AC to DC power inverter if you have access to a wall outlet with electricity. The power supplies themselves are a whole different topic, but you want a deep cycle battery or a marine battery. These batteries are made for extended drain, unlike those used to start your car. If you have access to a wall outlet, you can use the AC to DC power inverter in place of a 12-volt battery. You may also buy a DC to AC inverter to charge FRS radios or other handheld batteries that charge with cradles. This is kind of inefficient, but you got to do what you got to do. It would be a really good idea also to get maybe a 12-volt power solar power panel so you can charge your 12-volt batteries over time. So one of the things you need to take into consideration too is once you have the equipment, you also need a plan. And it's important to plan your communication beforehand, because establishing communication is going to be the hardest part, making that first contact with the individuals that you need to contact. So now that you have some equipment, it's important to have a communication plan. You need to think about several things. Who do I want to communicate with? How far do I need to communicate? How am I going to move my radio equipment from place to place? And what is my backup plan if I'm unable to establish contact with the individual or individuals I'm trying to establish contact with? And these are some things that you need to be able to answer beforehand. So it's a good idea to probably plan with a friend. Before the event you're prepping for, you need to have a plan with someone that you want to establish communication with, an ally. You need to think about how far they are away to choose the right equipment. Your radios also need to be able to communicate with each other. For example, if your city is away, you're not going to bring out your FRS radios to go to channel 2 and contact each other. It's not going to happen like that. You're going to need some height in the antennas, or you're going to have to get closer together first. So you should also pre-program your radios and have a list of channels or frequencies for certain events. Pre-programming your radios are important because they're easy to mess up with the programming. It's easy if you don't touch them for a while to forget how to program them. So if you have them ready to go and you have an established channel, you can just turn on the radio and you're ready to go. You should have a plan on what channel or frequency to jump to in case you find out someone is listening or jamming your communication. So this is not something that you can plan in the moment. If someone's listening on your frequency or on your channel and you try to tell your friend to jump to channel so-and-so, well, that person's going to hear you and they're going to follow you. Or if they're jamming you and you can't hear each other, there's no way you all can communicate, see which channel to move to. So this is the type of stuff that you need to think about beforehand and have a plan. You should also you have a check-in schedule. So when this event kicks off, you're not pulling up your radio and you're trying to waste power talking to your friend who's not even listening, right? You don't want to waste that valuable power, because at that time it's an asset. So you need to have a plan on when you're going to communicate with each other if something happens. So say example, the grid goes offline. Well, I'm going to establish with my friend every 20 minutes after the hour, I'm going to try to establish contact with him. That way, I'm not sitting there calling every 5 to 10 minutes, transmitting, burning up my battery, and he's doing something else. The most important and hardest part will be the beginning of the event that you're prepping for. Have a plan to establish that first contact. whether that mean meet somewhere or whatever you have to do, because the communication, that first communication, is going to be what makes it or breaks it. So you need to have a backup plan if you aren't able to establish contact. This may mean other means of communication or a pre-planned meeting place that's not easily accessible to all the individuals involved. And that pretty much just sums up that presentation. This isn't made for everyone who already has all kinds of knowledge about radios, who has a ham radio license, and has a plan. This is for all those guys out there right now who are just now thinking about it and thinking, oh shoot, maybe I need to think about what I'm going to do or how I'm going to contact so-and-so if something happens. And this is just pretty much just to get you started and get you nice little budget ideas in your mind of things that you can buy and prepare for. I do recommend that you get the ham radio license because it teaches you valuable stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. It teaches you how to use your equipment. And so that's pretty much that's the plug I'm going to give for ham radio. If you like the presentation, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you comment below. 73 to you.